Now on BBC 2 Newsnight with Kirsty Wark.
All the politicians want to go faster. They just can't agree the route, the cost or the destination. Tonight, there used to be slow trains to everywhere. Now there's to be a high-speed train to nowhere.
So that's where it's going.
The politicians can't agree where it will travel, who'll get jobs, and what the environmental impact will be.
By 2026, trains could be shooting along a cutting on this very spot at 250 miles an hour. But is the new route necessary? And is it the right route?
Good evening. It has only arrived 5 years after Labour put it in its manifesto, the announcement of a high-speed rail link, at first between London and Birmingham, travelling between the two cities in 49 minutes at 250 miles an hour through areas of outstanding natural beauty, and then, perhaps, onwards, connecting to Manchester, Leeds and eventually Glasgow. This whole idea has been on and off and off and on for 5 long years. And now there is political disagreement about routes, funding and the environmental impact. We'll hear all about that in a moment, but first, here's our political editor, Michael Crick.
Within sight of the existing Chiltern Line rail services, trains may one day be shooting through this beautiful Buckinghamshire countryside at an astonishing 250 miles an hour, linking London to Birmingham in just 45 minutes, barely half the current time. Apart from the Channel Tunnel, it's Britain's most ambitious rail project since the days of Queen Victoria. And the Prime Minister was in Birmingham today at the planned site of the West Midlands high-speed terminal.
And that's the old station. It's listed, it's a beautiful building. And then these are the dynamics.
This is the most exciting development in railways, to get high-speed rail, to reduce the time from Birmingham to London to 50 minutes, to be able to go Leeds to London 1 hour and 20 minutes, Manchester to London 1 hour and 20 minutes. This is a transformation of the possibilities for rail travel.
The proposed high-speed rail link leaves London from a rebuilt station at Euston and heads for Birmingham through the Chilterns, on a combination of newly built track and, north of Aylesbury, partly on the disused track bed of the old Great Central Railway. The line to Birmingham would open in 2026. Beyond that, it's planned the line would divide going north to Manchester and Leeds, and later up the west coast to Scotland and up the east coast to Newcastle. So the Buckinghamshire town of Wendover will get a new railway alongside its western edge. With all the disruption of construction, then lots of trains, lots of noise, but no new station.
So where will it go in terms of where we are now?
Well, we think it's...
People will be able to object through the consultation process that starts this autumn. But ministers plan to thwart any long-term planning wrangle by passing a parliamentary bill.
I just don't think the residents of Wendover will, accept that without a struggle.
What are they worried about? Property values?
Property values would be one thing, yes, but just living with that noise problem, would be awful. You can't enjoy your garden. You can't enjoy walking around the town.
And the first that some Wendover residents knew of what will one day hit them was from us.
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know anything about it?
Nothing, yeah.
What's your immediate reaction then?
Do we need one?
I wouldn't like it.
Why not?
Noise.
Noise.
I hate noise.
Nobody wants it in their backyard, but I suppose you have to have it.
Why don't they want it?
Oh, come on, the disruption was just awful when they built the bypass. And this is, going to be as bad, if not worse. That's why you don't want it. The disruption is just dreadful. And also, when it's finished, if they're going to do 250 miles an hour, however good the technology is, they're going to be much noisier, aren't they?
Because the trains will run so fast, the route needs to be as straight as possible, on track laid on embankments, bridges and cuttings, carved determinedly through areas of outstanding natural beauty.
At this point in the line, there'll be a railway viaduct in between cuttings on either side, and that farm over there will be wiped out, it seems. When I spoke to the farmer a few minutes ago, he knew nothing about the project and said, well, we'll all be millionaires then. Andrew Adonis, the Transport Secretary, says this will be the great infrastructure project of the 21st century. He's compared it with the canals in the 18th century, the railways in the 19th century, and the motorways in the 20th century.
Yet the Tories claim to have an even more ambitious high-speed rail scheme. They'd start building it 2 years earlier than Labour, they say, and go from central London via Heathrow to Birmingham, then to Manchester and across the Pennines to Leeds, all in one line and one project.
They're not cooperating, that's clear. The Conservatives did not want to be pre-consulted on this proposal, that is their right. They have a different approach to Heathrow. They are against the third runway at Heathrow, whereas the Labour government is in favour of it. That makes a material difference to our transport planning mix in this country. Now, if the Conservatives become the next government, they will be able to alter the route and include Heathrow in the way that they propose, because this is still the consultative planning stage and there's still a long way to go before anybody starts building this thing.
So, Britain should get some form of brand new rail route around the mid-2020s. Fast trains, but several decades behind their foreign high-speed counterparts.
Michael Crick will join now by the Transport Secretary, Lord Adonis, the Liberal Democrat Transport Spokesman, Norman Baker, and the Shadow Transport Secretary, Theresa Villiers. Lord Adonis, it won't have escaped your notice that this was proposed 5 years ago and we're just 2 months shy of an election.
It takes time to plan a high-speed line.
It may take time to plan, but can I just interrupt you before we start?
But we are now well
Yes,
advanced.
you were going to do it with Douglas Alexander. No, you weren't going to. Yes, you were going to do it with Ruth Kelly. No, you weren't.
We are now well advanced on the planning. Today we've published a detailed route from London to the West Midlands. Design work is starting now on the second leg of the high-speed line, which will go up to Manchester and across to Leeds. That will be a 335-mile network. That will be transformational in terms of the connections between not just London and these cities, but between the cities of the Midlands and the North.
So, Theresa Villiers, wasn't it just a political move not to take up Andrew Adonis's offer to see the white paper?
No, we were concerned, we were determined that HS2's report should be judged on its merits, but we were not prepared to let it close down our options because we have, whilst there's a lot of common ground between the parties on high-speed rail, where we do differ is how high-speed rail should interact with Heathrow. We see high-speed rail as providing an alternative to a third runway by providing an alternative to thousands of domestic and short-haul flights. That means it's very important to try and connect it to the airport to make it as easy as possible to switch from the plane to the train and get the real environmental benefits from high-speed rail.
Well, Norman, you did actually look at the plans. So where do you sit? If it was is it the Tories going earlier with less consultation and going further, including Heathrow, or is it Labour going piecemeal?
Well, no, I mean, the first thing to say is that I was offered the opportunity to go in, and Andrew has been, I think, to be fair, quite cooperative in terms of being cross-party engagement. I didn't feel constrained by going in to see what was there. I've got my own view on what the line should be. It's not necessarily a high-speed too. I didn't have to sign my name in blood that I would sign up for the government. So what do the Liberal Democrats want? Well, I think what we want is what we've got in terms of consultation, because what we've got is high-speed 2, the experts producing the preferred route. There will now be consultation, and the public must decide through their responses where the line should go.
It's interesting that you just seem to buy this hook, line, sinker. I mean, it would be the first section from London to Birmingham, started in 2017, finished in 2026, 9 years. The French could build Paris to Lille exactly the same length of time, length of track, in 4 years, and 1 more year to get to Lyon, which is the equivalent of Scotland, and you're just signing up to this?
No, I'm not signing up to it. What I'm signing up to is a concept that we've got a route identified by experts who've been employed, not the government, not the Labour Party, experts. They produced a route, and I think we should consult it and get the responses from the public, and that's the right way forward.
Why nothing north of Birmingham first?
Well, we need to, on this point about why it takes time, we do have an elaborate planning system in this country. You had interviews with people whose communities are going to be affected by that. It's absolutely right and proper that there should should be a proper system of consultation, that their views should be taken seriously, and issues like mitigation need to continue to be looked at. That's the way we do planning in this country. Only when we've gone through that process can we start actually building the line, which is why I was surprised that the Conservatives said they could start it in 2015. The advice I've had is that if you're going to have a proper process of consultation and a hybrid bill, you're not going to be able to start that soon.
But the process of consultation means that perhaps this line actually might not work. If you get enough protests, the 440 people that are going to lose their houses may actually kibosh this.
There needs to be a proper process of consultation. But the line, if we're going to have a high-speed line, it has to go somewhere. The rule of international high-speed lines is everyone wants the stations, no one wants the line. The line has to go somewhere. Yeah. But we need to try and generate the maximum consensus that we can on where it should go and deal fairly by the local communities which are affected.
Theresa Villiers, you'll start in 2015. What Andrew Adonis is saying is that you actually leave less time for consultation. So all these people like Wendover people, are simply going to be swept aside.
That's not the case at all. We believe it's very important to engage with the communities affected and ensure that they have their say on the route which is ultimately chosen. That is vitally important. And I think also we need sort of cross-party to think about the best mitigation methods to deal with the local environmental. As I've said, there are many ways in which we can work on a cross-party basis, but we need to get this right on Heathrow, and we also need to make sure that this project goes to the north of England.
Why is there a fixation on Heathrow?
Because it's our most important airport and because we have to find a way to relieve capacity pressure that doesn't inflict the environmental and quality of life damage which would come with a third runway.
Norman, can I just ask you, on this question of the environment,
yes.
The only way, and this is admitted in the report, the only way that this can be seen as an environmental win, the reduction of CO2 emissions, is if this line goes to Glasgow. Actually, it is actually bad for the environment if it just goes first to Birmingham.
No, I don't accept that, because there's a need for more capacity and some sort of transport mode from London to the north. You either have rail, or you have road, or you have aviation, and both of the alternatives are far more polluting than rail. And I actually think that it will be carbon beneficial. But there's also the fact that economic development...
The report itself says it won't be unless the route goes straight to Glasgow.
But the trains will go to Glasgow. It's very important to understand this. You referred earlier, Kirsty, to the French experience. The French TGV trains run on the high-speed lines. They also run on the existing lines. The way you get, at an early stage, a 3.5-hour journey time from Glasgow and Edinburgh to London, which will be transformational, is by running the high-speed trains on both the high-speed line and the conventional lines. So you can actually get those big journey time savings and a big switch from the plane to the train, because all the evidence is when you can get the journey times below 3.5 hours, people switch en masse from the plane to the train.
Can I just throw at you a mere 16 to 17 billion for London to Birmingham? You know, you're going to do this by presumably selling government bonds, which aren't selling very well at the moment, and that's only the government side. You're looking for £20 billion from private investors to get this off the ground.
It's going to be an expensive project. It won't start being built until after 2017, which will be once the Crossrail project is completed. The Crossrail project is a £16 billion project that we're building over the course of 7 years. So if this is a national infrastructure priority, it is affordable as the successor project to Crossrail. The question is whether it is the priority for the country.
You will actually, under your plans, if you're in government, you will start before the Crossrail plan is finished. And this estimate, I imagine, of cost is not dissimilar to one that you might put forward. Where is the money going to be taken from? Other transport plans?
We're absolutely confident this is an affordable project for this country. In the longer term, it's clear that high-speed rail will pay for itself because it generates such significant
How are the Tories going to fund it if they get in?
We will provide the funding.
All the funding?
We would look for a private sector contribution, but we would provide the bulk of the funding.
Oh, wait a minute, so wait a minute, that's
billion of the funding.
16 to 17 billion at the moment under Labour's plans as government, a further 20 billion is private investors. So what you're saying is that the bulk of the funding would come from the public purse, and so that is, if my arithmetic is right, anything up to 30 billion.
We've costed the line we propose at 20 billion, but remember that this cost is spread over the period of construction. So it relieves the pressure on budgets in individual years. It is affordable. We have to do this. If the rest of Europe can do this, so can we.
Well, I agree with that last point, but the truth is that the Shadow Chancellor, George Osborne, has been talking about 10% cuts in budgets other than protected departments like health, including transport. So the only way the Tories can afford it, if they're serious about it, and they've been kicking up a synthetic candy floss objection to matters today, is by raiding existing rail budgets. And if they raid the existing rail budgets, then that's no benefit to anybody, frankly.
Thank you all very much. Well, it's a long way off.